Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today this is part 1 of 2 with my June wrap up. Last time I did a potluck wrap up, I realised that I have so many books that I was going to need to find another way of doing this and either scrap potluck wrap-ups in its entirety or just do 2. And I put it to Twitter, and an upsetting number of people said to just scrap it and to just go back to standard reviewing. Rude. I know I gave it to you as an option, but I enjoy making it, so I'm going to keep doing that. But a nice enough amount of you said to just do 2. Which feels like really sweet karma that the people that didn't want it at all are going to get 2 this month, so you don't have to watch it, it's fine. But essentially, for those of you who haven't seen a potluck wrap up before, I have a teapot full of bits of paper, and on those bits of paper are the titles of books that I have read over the last year, and every month I top it up with the books that I read this month, and that's why there are so many, not because I read loads of books this month, because I don't usually get to wrapping up all of them. And why is that? That is because I'm on a time crunch. I have to do all of this within 20 minutes, and that apparently is the bit that I struggle with. So we're going to do 2 slots of 20 minutes. I will upload both videos at the same time, so you can enjoy them at your leisure. You can start with part 1 or part 2. Really doesn't matter. This is part 1. So we're going to... Oh, that was a really satisfying sound. A way more satisfying sound than I thought it would be. Take the lid off the pot, have my pot to hand. We're going to press go or start or play. My 20 minutes has started, and the first book that I'm going to wrap up for June is A Throne of Swans by Catherine and Elizabeth Court. Now I believe they are mother and daughter, but A Throne of Swans is a Swan Lake retelling. I initially bought this because it's a hotkeys book, and generally I really enjoy hotkeys books. This was not one of the ones that I enjoyed. I think I gave it 3 stars, and that was at a push. I think it probably deserved between 2 stars reflecting back on it, and I will tell you for why. So in this story there is a main character called Aderin, who is the daughter of the Swan King, niece of the High King, and her family are swans. Her mother was a white swan, her dad was a black swan, and one day when she was out flying with her mother, they both got attacked by hawks, and her mother was killed and she had her back torn up, and it meant that she can't fly. Now the problem with that is you can't be considered a royal or have royal status if you can't fly. It then becomes this whole thing when her father dies and she's supposed to take over his mini kingdom, that she can't retain that if she can't fly. The only way she would be able to retain that is through marriage, and she basically goes to the main city to kind of find a way around this. And my main issue with this is, I understand that for this narrative in particular, the plot point is that where her back is torn up, it's not something she could have controlled, it's not something that she would necessarily have been born with, and it will feel like a crueler disability. But as far as disability rep goes, the thing that I found most frustrating is she spends the entire book trying to fix herself, and the 2 other characters that have experienced something like this are also constantly trying to fix themselves. And it's not that they're fixing the world and the ableism around them, but pandering to the ableism. Now she ends up hanging out with this guy who is clearly evil from the start. Like, no one even questioned this guy was going to be the bad guy. Even if you hadn't seen the ballet before, you would know this guy, dodge as fuck. Like, he just rocks up at the most, you know, opportune moments, and he gives her like this magic potion that helps her turn from human to swan and swan to human, etc. I think, I can't remember what kind of bird he is. And there's like this whole like race divide between people that can transform and humans that can't, and humans are basically treated like trash. What is interesting is the fact that the 2 species cannot intermingle, because the moment a bird person touches a human being, they start to like burn from the inside out, which is really fucking dark. And something else that was interesting about this narrative is the fact that she finds out that her father is not a nice person after he dies. Even though he loved her and protected her and kept her safe, he was doing experiments on people and he was doing other cruel stuff. So it had potential, and I do really enjoy the ballet, so that was kind of why I went into this like this, because with Nutcracker retellings and stuff coming out, no one has been talking about this as a Swan Lake retelling, and now I know why. It's because it's not great. So I will be unhauling this pretty much ASAP. I do have the second book, and it is only a duology, so part of me is like, fuck it, just read the second book. And the other part of me is like, life's too short, so I probably won't. I will probably just unhaul both of them and call it a day, but really disappointed in this one. Would not recommend it. Unless you're into ableism or you just don't care about shit like that and you just want another Swan Lake retelling to add to the stashes that you have at home. I don't know you and I don't know your life, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, we spent 5 minutes on one book. Let's see if I can pick up the pace just a little bit. The next book I'm going to talk about is Middle Game by Sean Maguire. This is one of the ones that I have been dreading reviewing because I didn't love it. I read the Way with Children series pretty recently and absolutely adored it. I devoured it in a weekend. I waited until the 6th book came out and then immediately listened to the audiobook. Like, I just love having those stories told to me. This one, however, for me, it just couldn't decide what it wanted to be. It's pitched as a fantasy, but it feels more like a sci-fi because you've got someone who's obsessed with maths and the logistics of different timelines, and you've got someone who, whilst very language focused, is very logical, so again feels sci-fi-y. There was elements of it where, like, at one point one of the other clones, who's like an evil clone, is sent to like keep an eye on them and then assassinate them, but then has a 5-year relationship with this guy, and it was just, I don't know if it was 5 years or like 5 months, but like there was elements of that it took me out of it because I was like, why? I understand if she's like lived her life without her other half and stuff. I'm talking about this like you've read this. I'm assuming you have, because essentially this book is about a set of twins that are split up at birth, and they have the power of a god put in them and split in between them. And the whole time there's this like scientific corporation behind them. There's hundreds of other twins in hundreds of other timelines that are also being manipulated because the main character's scientist guy is trying to find over the word wall, like heaven, I guess, or Atlantis, or I don't fucking know. But I just found the writing style really jarring, and I think it's because it feels so much like a sci-fi. And whilst I do enjoy a sci-fi writing is very, very different to fantasy writing, I found, and the nuances are slightly triggered by different things, and I just find it really jarring. So it was doubly upsetting when everyone told me I was going to fucking love this, and I thought it was fine. And actually that's probably at a push. I just didn't enjoy it. And I know that some people have said, oh well, because I listened to it along with the audiobook as I read it, people said that was the issue. I don't think that is, because for me, it's not about, stylistically, I don't think it should make a massive difference to me whether I read it as an audiobook or as a paperback. Comprehension, sometimes it helps to have it read to me, because whilst I am a visual learner, I think sometimes auditory it just helps with comprehension. So it's not even like there were concepts in this that I didn't understand. I just didn't enjoy it, and it was a real shame because I was so hyped for it. And I'm sorry, Sarah, that you bought me a book that you thought I would love and then I didn't enjoy it. I am really sorry for that, but I'm not going to spend any more time talking about it because it just wasn't the one for me. It just wasn't the one for me. I'm not saying it's a bad book, and I'm not saying you wouldn't enjoy it. I'm just saying, actually I think I've said enough on that one. But anyway, so let's move on to the next one, which is Desperate Measures and Learned My Lesson. Now, you might remember, vaguely, that around this time last year I did a drunken video where I read the first 3 chapters of Desperate Measures. It burns! I got more and more drunk as I read them, and they were wild, and I was going out of my way to ridicule it and roast it and take the piss. I actually really enjoyed them. Katie Roberts, for whatever reason you might not think erotica is for you, I would give these books a go. Yes, they are smutty as fuck, fine. But actually, Katie Roberts has a really great grasp on what a character arc needs to be in 200 pages or less. and the kind of development of self and the reflection within the characters is actually really, really good. And I know that's not what you're not going into an erotica being like, oh my god, but the characters are so three-dimensional, I love that for me. No, you're literally like, oh, they have sex, I love that. I get that. But for me, as a writer, I loved that, and I thought these two that I've read were great, and I will definitely be continuing on with the series. I just haven't found the time to get into more erotica, but I will absolutely be finishing the series because it's so good. And if you're feeling snobby and you're like, no, do it. It's by a self-published author, they're available via Amazon, like, just fucking do it. Do it and have a good time. They are such a laugh. Yes, they're BDSM, yes, they're Disney-esque, but those characters are, I mean, really it's just the character names and the premise as opposed to anything like the Disney version. So don't go into it thinking, oh, it's Megan Hercules or Hades or whatever. Like, just see them as like casual nicknames as a setup as opposed to strict guidelines.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
You know what I'm saying. Anyway, so yes, loved those. Rated them both 5 stars. Which, on the back of the one I've just reviewed that I didn't enjoy, maybe you just shouldn't trust my taste in books anymore. That's fair. I would understand that. Okay, next is going to be something I said by, I think it's Ben Smith, which is his pen name, and Doc Brown is his comedian name. This was an audiobook that I read as a NetGalley arc. And I actually really enjoyed this. It really reminded me of Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow in that it's the main character's perspective. He is living a life in a world that kind of jars with him, that he doesn't fully comprehend for reasons that he can't quite articulate. The age group of the character is a little bit older. Essentially the main character is in year 8, so the target audience I'm imagining would be year 6. I loved it. I've seen, like, there's like no one else has reviewed it on Goodreads really, and those who have been really critical of it, but I really enjoyed it because I just thought the pacing of it was really fun. I liked the concept of a kid wanting to be a comedian but not realising that's what he wants and kind of exploring his comedy through that. It very much feels like Doc Brown, and I really, really enjoy his comedy. If you're not sure who Doc Brown is, he's the guy that does the whole comedic rap about a good cup of tea. He does other stuff as well, but like, that's the one that you'll probably recognise because it was on Russell Howard's Good News and stuff like that.
Naturally, I say yes, you're my guest, so I take the offer gratefully. But then what I see made my heart burst. You only gone and put the fucking milk in first!
So I thought this was a great start. I don't think this is a debut book either. I think actually Ben Smith has other books that he's released, so I need to check those out as well, because as middle grades go, I thought that was a laugh, and I think I gave it 4 stars in the end. There's not much to it. The characters are all really tropey, the narrative is adventure-y, they're exploring New York, which for me was nostalgic. I enjoyed that. There was nothing wrong with it. It's a contemporary, so there's nothing going to be like crazy new novel about it, but I enjoyed the writing style, I enjoyed the character's voice. The main character is an idiot, he's a teenage boy, we expect nothing less, but it was fun. And there was nothing super toxic or nasty about it. When they talk about him being mean, like, it's the bare minimum, like, it's fine. The only criticism I would have is that there's some moments of it that feel just a bit too neat. I'm starting to realise that for me is just an issue because it doesn't feel realistic or authentic, as opposed to this being a book that is meant to be tied up nice and neatly, whatever. So that is on me. But yes, would definitely recommend that one. And I do think it's out already, so I'll get it in for Waypoint if I can. The next one is Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall. Again, I did this as an audiobook, mainly because every time I try and buy this for myself, I buy it through my business, and then someone else buys it, and I do feel like, well, you know, that was the reason that I bought it. I really liked this one. It was very, very different to other feminist books that I've read, in that it felt also quite self-help-y and anecdotal, more real life application, and how as a white woman I might not have envisaged how white privilege affects women of colour, and how feminism can impact those people without me necessarily seeing it through their lens, and also trying to avoid centering myself on that conversation, which I think is really important. So, the irony of me saying that though. So yeah, I really, really like this one. The introduction really interested me because there was a bit about how, oh, you know, I'm not here for you to like me, I'm not here for me to make this easy for you, but actually there was nothing in that book that I didn't feel like wasn't wholly honest, and I didn't feel like there was anything really bitchy or aggressive in it. So I don't know where that perspective has come from, where people think that this is maybe a more aggressive feminism, but maybe that's just because I am used to aggressive misogyny, so aggressive feminism just doesn't compute in the same way. I don't know, but I thought it was really, really insightful. I thought it was really well constructed, and I would absolutely recommend it. I'm going to read Inferior by Angela Saini next, which is very, very similar in that it's anecdotal feminism and by an author of colour. So I'm hoping that will just give me some more additional insight and as a follow-up to a Mickey Kendall. Next is going to be The Murder of Graham Catton, which, oh my god, an immediate 5 stars. I loved this. The Murder of Graham Catton is, to me, the perfect modern gothic book for several reasons. The first is that you don't know if it's psychological or paranormal. Like, there is a perfect balance of both. You're not sure what to believe, what is in the character's head. It modernises it in a way that it includes podcasts without it being year specific or tropey or overdone. The main character is both awful and empathetic. You understand what she's going through, you feel sorry for her, but she's not a nice person, and you also recognise that her family are also trying to be good people, and it's the fact that they are trying to be good people that implies they are not good people. And Katie Lowe is just an expert at all things modern gothic. I absolutely fucking love this. I listened to it as an audiobook via NetGalley originally, and then I'd already pre-ordered the hardback, but the NetGalley art came in quicker, so I just jumped straight on that. Everything was so neatly wrapped up, and then there were 2 hours left on the audiobook, and I ran around screaming. Like, my brother will confirm that I literally went nuts because I was like, there's still so much. I had all these different theories. I was completely wrong, did not see the ending, and wasn't mad about it because it was still really well set up. I just hadn't put those pieces in the right place. Oh god, I just loved it. It was so, so good. If I was going to recommend any from the ones other than Desperate... No, even instead of Desperate Measures. If you read any of the books from this wrap-up, read this fucking book. It's so good. If you like paranormal horrors, if you like psychological thrillers, if you like murder mysteries, if you just like books that have that contemporary podcasty feel to them, regardless of your taste, you will fucking love this book. If you like any books that I like, you will love this book. So, yes. Oh, now when people say, oh, what is a book that you wish you could reread with fresh eyes? This one. This is the kind of book where I kind of want to like get myself a second copy so that I can write notes in the margins and like go, oh, here was the setup for this thing and here's the payoff for that, and this character foreshadowed this, and oh my god, it was just beautiful. It's so clever. It's so fucking clever, and I loved it, and Katie Lowe did it again, and all I can do is say thank you to Katie Lowe for writing this beautiful book, and say thank you to Ashley for introducing me to Katie Lowe in the first place. Excellent work to both of you. Loved it. Okay, next. Erotic stories for Punjabi widows. Okay, very different. I was gifted this by my friend Yanka, and I went into this thinking, what the fuck is this? This is a contemporary about a young woman living in London, but she has Punjabi heritage, and she's very much trying to escape those Punjabi stereotypes. And after losing her job or needing to get another job, she decides that she's going to set up she's invited to join a creative writing class at her local temple. However, the woman who sets up the classes doesn't tell her that when they are writing classes, they are not creative writing classes. It is that these Punjabi widows literally don't know how to read or write. And it's really, really interesting because it looks at their backstories and things like that. But obviously it has erotic stories in the title, so erotic stories do become a part of it. And essentially, whilst they can't read or write, they can create stories. And one of the first things they understand as young women and as brides is sex, and they start to explore the sex lives that they wish they had through those stories. And it's really, really cleverly written, and it does look at misogyny, and it does look at there's like a murder mystery element to this as well, in that like young girls have been going missing, so it has quite a dark thread to it, but it has some really funny upbeat moments as well. There's a lot of questioning of sexuality and talking about LGBTQ stuff, but obviously it's an own voices author. I believe the author actually wrote this off the back of setting up a writing workshop near where she lives and finding that a lot of the older women who had great stories in them did struggle to kind of... There you go, that's my 20 minutes. did struggle to kind of translate that onto the page. But I absolutely loved this, and I don't know if it's just that I went in with such low expectations and then they just blew me away, or if it was just the fact that it was always going to be great, because it's just such a fun mix of things that I like, in that it has the sarcasm, it has the banter, it has the sex, it has the murder. Like, it just, like, considering it's only like 300 pages long, it's got so much packed in, and it doesn't feel cramped, it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's just a really fun read, and I'm gonna have to leave it there because otherwise I'll just end up telling you way too much about it and you won't want to read it because you'll feel like you've read it already. But these two will absolutely be available via Waypoint, because they're the two that I want you to go away and read, whereas others I will be unhauling. So if we look at my tally for how many I reviewed this month, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is on par with my personal best. It's not better than my personal best, but not too bad. So I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of tea, and then I'm going to record part 2, and we'll see if I can do better than 7 in part 2. If you're off to watch part 2, I will see you then, and if not, I will see you next time, and I hope you're having a lovely day.